Good afternoon, Varsity Locker Room podcast fans. I'm your host, Frank Gill, and my co-host, Matt Inkler. Here we are finishing up the regional finals week, Sweet 16, Elite 8, on to the Final Four, and it's kind of depressing because, going into the regional, we had a lot of teams that were hot, and, to think that we have made it through the regionals and not only two, Arlington and Marion Local,
the teams that we cover,
are left. And, we started the season off kind of boo-hooing the OHSAA about 7 divisions. And we were thinking, man, we're going to be loaded at the Final Four, to have a bunch of Lima Land teams. And we have 2 left. Kind of gut-wrenching a little bit, only because, I didn't see it coming.
Yeah, I agree with you, Frank, because we really thought with the way some of these teams were playing, we would maybe have possibly 5, up to 5, maybe 6 teams there. And then we've gone to 7 divisions. That's why we had those thoughts, because when we were in 4 divisions, we'd have 2 or 3. And there's a possibility, hopefully not, that we have nobody there that championship weekend. I think we will, but that's just crazy to think.
No pressure, Vermillion and Coach Goettemoeller. So, what a great season we've had so far. This is going to be our last podcast for the 24-25 basketball season. And for me, it's been a great experience, and I know you as well. We really look forward to doing this, and I thank you for putting all this together. I just show up.
No, well, we work together to do this, because we have to thank all the coaches that got the stats out to us. Even when we know how busy we are as coaches, and we asked for preseason, we were asking during the season for some stats, and even our bonus episodes, kids took time away from their schedules, and Coach Howard and other people that are involved with a lot of other things took the time. So we can't thank you guys enough for making this so successful.
Well, let's talk about who's hot right now. And again, obviously, a lot of the teams are done. But let's talk about the All-Star game, which will be at the Fieldhouse at 8 o'clock. Is that the Tuesday after the state tournament?
No, it's a Sunday night this year, March 30th at 8 p.m. It will be the Sunday
will we
after
be back
the state
by then?
championships. We'll be back from Vegas. I don't know if I want to go to the Fieldhouse that night.
All right. In one game, all the divisions, again, Tabes, why don't you take it and kind of explain how this kind of came about?
Well, we used to do it that they did 2 games. They did a divisions 1, 2, and 3 game and a 4 game for both boys and girls. And they were held the Monday and Tuesday after the state tournament. Well, this year the coaches got together. They did a vote on it in Northwest Ohio. And they said, how about we make all 7 divisions together, make it 1 game, pick our 16 best players. Didn't matter what grade level. It used to be a senior all-star game. And we'll play the girls at 6. We're not going to have a meal at UNOH anymore. We're going to have the award ceremony in between the games. And then after that, about 8:15, the boys will tip. And so I thought it was a creative way to do it. I thought it was kind of special for seniors to only play in that, but the game became so uncompetitive. There was no defense. I think you're going to get more competition here, and you're also seeing teammates that were teammates during the season. They're not even on the same team. So I don't know how they did the exact voting. I'm sure they tallied up all the votes and made sure that both teams were even, but there's 2 really good teams.
I mean,
playing.
If you look at these 2 teams, we have the red team versus the white team, and the red team is coached by Coach Aaron Elwer from Delphos St. John's and Mark Triplett from Shawnee. And on that red team is Cameron Elwer from Delphos St. John's, Jake Gherkin from Liberty Benton, Jaquel Cotton from Lima Senior, Will Sensabaugh.
Oh, no.
Excuse me.
You go back to the red team. You went down to the white team.
Yeah, my apologies.
The red team here with Cam Elwer.
Cam Elwer, Beckett Berkey, Trevick Berkey, Zori Island from Elida, Andrew Elwer from Delphos St. John's, Willie Foster from Lima Senior, Khalil Ligon from Defiance, and Austin Neatcamp from Marion Local. That's on the red team.
Yeah, and you look at that team, that's a pretty stacked team, but they're going up against the white team with Coach Goettemoeller and Coach Kevin Sensabaugh. Sean Foster, who will not be playing in the game, unfortunately. He broke his hand. We'll get more into that. I'm sure they had some – they didn't put the alternates, but I'm sure they have some alternates. But who else is on that white team? We have Jake Gherkin from Liberty Benton, Jaquel Cotton from Lima Senior, Will and Owen Sensabaugh from Spencerville, Jordan Pretty from LCC, Balin Blockberger from Coldwater, and Ren Sheets from Crestview. So they got it right. They got a lot of good players. But the thing is, right, they could have added another 16 and not had a drop-off.
Right. Well, and also, here's my question is, how does this play a part in – I mean, this is obviously OHSAA acceptable. You know,
I'm sure they did the research because
the OHSAA did research, or Northwest
no,
Ohio?
Northwest Ohio did research. Come on now. We got good coaches, so I'm sure they dotted all their I's and crossed their T's to make sure that they were eligible to play in this. I'm pretty sure that they get one All-Star game. The seniors get, I think, up to 2 All-Star games. So if we go to the North-South game or Ohio-Indiana game, some of these seniors could be playing in that as well.
I'm just, I'm sure they got it right. I'm sure they know what they're talking about. But, like, if Coach Elwer is coaching Delphos St. John's kids, it used to be back in the day you weren't allowed to, if you coached, like, an AAU team, you couldn't coach your own kids.
You could coach 2 of your kids.
They've changed that. But, like, when I was in school, like, if Dave Evans was an AAU coach, he wouldn't have been able to do this.
So maybe that's why they kind of split the Lima senior kids up, because they can't have more than 2 kids playing on the same team. Well, we're not behind the scenes, so we don't know. So let's talk about the Cold. So congratulations, those guys. That's going to be a fabulous game. Get out and see them at the Fieldhouse. That's the 30th. That's the Sunday after the state tournament, which is being played Friday and Saturday. That is not actually the weekend of the state tournament. That's the Sunday following the state tournament. I just thought about it because we'll be in Las Vegas.
Holla.
Okay. The Cold section. Our Cold, man, we had a lot of colds that we could talk about, and I'm sure we could make episodes about colds and our
But
gripes.
we want to be positive.
Yeah, but we are going to give a little cold here because we both were fortunate enough to win regional championships, and that was done usually on a Friday, sometimes a Saturday. And you were already starting to prepare Sunday for your opponent, which would have been played on Thursday and Friday in the state tournament. But with the expansion of the seven divisions, now they got to practice 4 or 5 more days. If they are fortunate enough to win, like Marion Local or Arlington, they're going to practice another 4 to 5 days. And I think you said it best before we went on air. It kills the momentum from every team. Like, Arlington's riding the biggest high right now. Like, I mean, you upset Delphos St. John's. No one had them beating Delphos St. John's. I think Coach Vermillion would love to have played Thursday or Friday, which he's going to have an opportunity to play Friday, but then they would end the season on that Saturday if they were fortunate enough to win. But this spreading it out, I just don't like it.
Well, no, you think about it. If you're Arlington, going up against Russia, you play on Friday, you would have Saturday to practice. The following week, 5 days. So 6 extra practices. Some would say, well, great. They have plenty of time to get ready. You got to ride the momentum. And having 6 days off, to get ready for another your biggest game of the year, yes, that's great. But it's really not, because you have competed all season long. You've practiced all season long. Your practices at this point are like what? An hour, 75 minutes max. So you're not really doing a whole lot more than what you have done already.
Yeah.
So I am not a big favor of this. And again, I saw a lot of the complaints on social media about the girls' state tournament because the girls' Final Fours were at high schools. That's because most of the nice college gyms were being used. Being used for boys.
Were still playing.
Right. And so for me, they got to look at this and find some other way to make this happen. But at the end of the day, here we are complaining about what the OHSAA's done. Hopefully they look at this and kind of revamp it a little bit. And again, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, and tweaks will come along the way. And me having a lot of time on my hands, this is what I thought is you play the states. You go back to your regular week. We cut everything a week short so they could do this. Go back to your regular schedule and have the dates the same. Just push it back a week like they had it. And you play your state semifinal on a Tuesday. And then you play your Friday, Saturday games.
Like normal.
Yeah. I just don't understand the week. And we both know as coaches, practice time at this time, it's so overrated. You're watching more film than anything. And for kids to watch 5 days of film, that gets a little old.
All right, let's talk about the Player of the Week. This week's Player of the Week is sponsored by Stolly Insurance. Stolly Insurance, looking out for you and your family for over 100 years. Top-tier agents who treat you with respect and get you the answers you need when you need them. And, boy, this week, this Player of the Week had a remarkable regional finals game. And this week, our Player of the Week is Calvin Willow from Arlington. The kid put up 22 points, 7 rebounds versus Delphos St. John's in that regional championship game. And, I was able to watch a lot of the replay. This kid dominated. I mean, on both ends. And defensively, when Delphos St. John's penetrated that zone and got in there to see 6'10", he was intimidated.
Well,
intimidating.
I look at a lot of people who are saying, well, he's 6'10", he should dominate. Well, Austin Niecamp's 6'8" for Marion Local, and Delphos St. John's guarded him pretty well. Now, granted, he goes out on the perimeter a little more than Calvin does, but Calvin he caught the ball so deep. It was all about positioning before he got the ball. And, yeah, it is hard to guard 6'10", but you have to know the tricks of the trade and how to get close to the basket and sometimes passed it out, reposted deeper. He had a fantastic game. It was a great game plan by Coach Vermillion. But, yeah, he is well deserving of that last player of the week of the year.
Well, congratulations to Calvin Willow. All right, it's state semifinal week. We look back at the regional tournament and break down the results, previewing this week's coming for the state semifinals. So in D1, we have the state semifinals, St. Ignatius versus Olentangy Orange, and then we have Reynoldsburg versus Lakota West. Now we move on to D2, the Northwest Regional. This is brought to you by the CCR Realtors. CCR sets the standard when it comes to local real estate. If you are looking to buy or sell, see agent Jody Cartagena for all your real estate needs. Last week on Wednesday, March 5th, this was at the Elida Fieldhouse. We had Winton Woods taking on Lima Senior. And again, we had number 2 Winton Woods versus Lima Senior, RPI ranking number 4. Winton Woods gets a big road win. And I say a road win because that Elida Fieldhouse was about 95% Lima. And they get a big win, 61-56. Lima Senior was led by Sean Foster's 19 points. Willie Foster had 11, and Jaquel Cotton had 10 points and 11 rebounds. And I'm telling you, Jaquel Cotton played a great game for his last senior game.
Yeah, he had to go out unfortunately with that charge towards the end of the game. You like to be on the floor as a senior for your last game, but what a terrific career he had. It was cut short by a year with the injury last year. He went through some trials and tribulations this year, but still stepped up, and that's a big part that Lima Senior is going to miss. I know they have a lot coming back, but what Jaquel Cotton has done for Lima Senior, along with the other seniors for Lima Senior, they have to be really proud of that. I had an opportunity to watch that game, and they bowled it out fast. I mean, a couple dunks, couple layups, had that place rocking. Some people said that's the loudest they've ever heard the Elida Fieldhouse, which is pretty amazing for all the games that have been played there. But you got to give Winton Woods credit. They didn't bend or break.
Down 21-12 at the end of the first quarter and found a way to chip away to get back in that game by halftime and in the third quarter. But the momentum had already switched to Winton Woods, and Winton Woods had 4 studs on the floor who went in for double figures. Just really manhandled. They just had the bigger, better, faster bodies than Lima Senior. Now, granted, they competed. Lima Senior was not going to back down, and Coach Simpson did a great job of strategically calling his timeouts. It's just that Winton Woods made a lot more plays.
I think you brought up a key word, chipping away. They didn't look at the overall score. They just kept chipping away, making plays. And after watching that game, because I watched it on film, I was like, Winton Woods is a state championship team.
Yeah.
I mean, they played like it. And
well, then the second game, which was the next night, Toledo St. Francis took on Loveland. Toledo St. Francis wins 54-37, so which the regional finals was Winton Woods versus St. Francis. And St. Francis gets a big win, 45-40. And after that Winton Woods game over Lima Senior, I did not see this coming.
No, I didn't. That's why I just tried to set you up with that Winton Woods. But it's interesting because I was like, Winton Woods may struggle a little bit because Loveland plays in Winton Woods league. They played twice this year, and they did not beat Loveland by 17 like St. Francis did. They were like 12-10. So I'm like, well, St. Francis could hang with them, but for them, and it was a lot different atmosphere for Winton Woods. Just the lower bowl was full. There was nobody in the balconies. And sometimes a game like a Lima Senior game can suck a lot of energy out of your team. And plus all the travel they had to do. That's a 2-hour drive to come back there, and just you don't have that energy like you did that night when it was packed.
Right.
But still no excuse. And all the credit goes to St. Francis because they're headed to a state Final Four. They're the number 21 seed. They're going to be playing the overall number 1 Martin RPI seed Westerville North. And these, again, are all at sites other than Dayton for the semifinals. And then in the other matchup in Division II is number 37, Massillon Perry. They had a losing record. They were 4 games below 500 coming into the tournament. They've made it all the way to the state semis, and they'll be playing another team from the Cleveland area in North Royalton, and they are a number 3 seed.
Yeah, so that Perry North Royalton will be played at the Canton Fieldhouse, while Westerville North will be taking on St. Francis at Wright State University.
All right, let's take a look at Division III. The Northwest Regional. It is sponsored by American Heating and Cooling. American Heating and Air Conditioning is dedicated to providing the best possible solution for your home or business. You can count on us to provide you with a system and solution that fits your unique needs. And since we've installed many systems in the area, we've earned a reputation for doing the job right the first time. Well, while you were Wednesday at Elida Fieldhouse covering the Lima Senior Spartans, WIMA went on the road all the way up to Toledo on a school night. I was dead the next day.
No 2-hour delay for you?
No 2-hour delay. I was hoping there was some snow coming down. Shawnee, who was the number 7 RPI, took on Toledo Central Catholic, the number 33 RPI, and Shawnee came away with a 71-65 game. This was a game where Shawnee was in control pretty much the entire game, and then the fourth quarter happened, and Shawnee uncharacteristically turned the ball over 7 times. They gave up 9 offensive rebounds. Those were all in the fourth quarter. That wasn't for the game. And it allowed Toledo Central Catholic to get back in the game, but Toledo Central Catholic really struggles to shoot the ball. They were 2 of 17 from three-point land. But this was the worst part. 58 free throws shot, 30 in the fourth quarter.
Longest fourth quarter ever.
Oh, my gosh. And we didn't start the game until it was supposed to start at 8. It started at 8:25 or something. And I don't mean to criticize officiating, but I am, because Shawnee was getting held on every press breaker, and they wouldn't call it. And then Toledo Central Catholic would get a steal and barely get bumped at the rim, and it was 2 shots. And luckily, Central Catholic didn't make their free throws, and Shawnee was able to persevere through all of that. That's their first trip to the Elite Eight since 2021. It's their 7th all-time. If you look at it, Beckett Berkey had 31 points. He was 10 of 11 from the line, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. Trevick has 19 points, struggled from the free throw line a little bit, but he went 7 for 7 from the floor. And then again, I think this was the player of the game because he made so many plays for him. Tate Bender, he had 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists.
Well, and he was 2 for 2, I believe, down the stretch with free throws too. So taking that pressure off of Beckett and Trevick at the free throw line. And in the other game, there was Lutheran West. They took on Sandusky. Sandusky, big win, 59-53, which sets up the matchup for Saturday's regional finals with Shawnee taking on Sandusky. You have a Shawnee team who's ranked 7th, and Sandusky ranked 21. And so on paper, everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is Shawnee's. This is their best chance to get back to state. I was able to cover this game and being able to watch this team, and I'm like, how is Sandusky only ranked number 21?
Did you see their schedule?
Loaded.
He upped it. I mean, because they beat Lima Senior last year in the tournament. They only had 2 losses. Well, he goes, and then they get beat in the district, and he goes, I'm making this schedule tough. He scheduled all the teams out of Cleveland, all the teams from Columbus.
Yeah, Damar Moore, the head coach for Sandusky. Obviously, that scheduling, beefing it up, really, really helps. And I don't think a lot of coaches, I know they do, but they don't want to admit it. But beefing your schedule up for the first 22 games will only prepare you for that tournament run,
especially when you're playing Division I and II schools. You're not going to see that kind of caliber teams in D3, but you just want to go to that final score.
Yep. Here. So the final score: Sandusky 62-57. Beckett Berkey with 22 points. Trevick Berkey with 16, and Tate Bender with 9, and then Jagger Hutchins closes out his career with 8 points.
Well, you look again at Sandusky. I watched the game on Wednesday when they beat Lutheran West, who's won a state title and been in the Final Four couple times over the last 5 or 6 years, and I just felt like they were a little different in Central. They were just as athletic as Central Catholic, but they had shooters. They could shoot the ball, and I knew Shawnee was going to struggle, but I still favored Shawnee. I felt like they beat a Lima senior with that kind of athleticism, but here's the difference between Sandusky and Lima. Sandusky has some length around the rim, and they're good rim protectors, and it's hard to get into the paint and score.
With girth.
Yeah.
They're thick.
They
were big
kids.
bodies.
Well, you got a former college coach at Bowling Green, a former Sandusky player himself coaching Sandusky, and that's their first trip to the state Final Four.
Well, and so that gives us our Final Four matchup. We have Garfield Heights taking on Louisville. They'll be at Canton Fieldhouse on Sunday, March 16th. And then you have Sandusky at Wright State taking on Aiken.
Cincinnati Aiken.
Cincinnati Aiken.
They're the number one seed,
yep.
RPI. And you had Olentangy Orange in Division I. They're the number one seed. The number one seed did not survive in D2. But should be interesting matchups. I really like the Sandusky team. I haven't seen Aiken play. I'm sure they're athletic. They usually always are. But, man, it's hard to go against Sandusky at this point.
Hey, the one thing we both notice, they change their shoes at halftime. So that superstition, I'm sure, will carry on in the
Those
state
yellow
semis.
ones were smooth.
They're fire.
They came out.
But it's amazing. I would like to take a poll if there was a poll. How many people that were at the game from Shawnee recognized that they came out with royal blue shoes on?
That was the first thing I noticed on Wednesday night.
All right, in D4, Northwest Regional is sponsored by Henderson Concrete. For affordable, high-quality concrete services, trust Henderson Concrete Construction. With over 20 years of experience, they deliver reliable, durable results. On time, every time. Choose Henderson Concrete Construction for a job done right. Call Adam Henderson today for your free estimate. 419-235-1387. On Thursday, we had at Bowling Green State University, we had Elida taking on Gates Mills Hawken. And here we have Elida that was ranked number 39, and Gates Mills Hawken was number 21. They get the big win over Elida, 73-49. Elida was led by Amari Walsh, 12 points. Zori Island had 10, and Marcus Hill 10. I watched this game, the first 2.5 quarters, and I just felt like Elida was doing enough to hang around because I thought Hawken was really good.
Well, there's a few things because we covered the game. Elida comes out strong, and they have a nice first quarter. They're up 8 or 9 points after one, and we have conversations and in between at timeouts, and even Coach Todd Walker looks at me and says, Elida's going to destroy this team. And I kind of felt that way with the momentum. But you didn't expect someone like Gates Mills Hawkins, who shot 28% from three for the season. At one point, they were 5 of 11, and they ended up right around 50% for the game. But this freshman, Ice Taylor, he was, again, all those kids were respectful, went into the post-game conference after and talked to all of them, the coach including. They're all class act kids, and I mean, it's easier to be classy when you win.
A lot easier.
But man, they just were on fire, and it kind of tore up Elida's game plan of forcing this team to shoot from the outside, because everything we watched on film, they were slashers getting to the rim.
Well, and there was a shot I remember. This kid, I think his last name was Price. He shoots a 3, and Zori hand up, just like he's supposed to, and kind of just turns around and gives what am I supposed to do? Yeah. Because that's not part of the scouting report, because as you said, they hit some big threes. And again, congratulations to Elida on a great season. Coach Howard, awesome job on your first year. I know it's not the way that you guys wanted it to end, but kudos to Elida and a great job, on the season. In the second game, we had Napoleon taking on Jonathan Alder. Jonathan Alder wins 56-43. So that sets up a regional final matchup between Gates Mills Hawkins versus Jonathan Alder. Gates Mills Hawkins gets a big win, 63-58. So they'll be moving on to the state semifinals, where they will take on the number 11 team, Glenville. And then also the other game in that state semifinals will be Marysville taking on Wyoming.
Actually, it's Maysville.
Maysville, excuse me.
Well, there's another number 1 seed, Wyoming. So 3 out of the first 4 divisions that we've covered, the number 1 seed has made it to the Final Four. that Gates Mills, Hawk, and Glenville, I would imagine is going to be played up in the Cleveland area at the is that the Canton Fieldhouse? You got all the stats.
Yeah, so Glenville will be taking on Hawken at the Canton Fieldhouse, while Maysville will be taking on Wyoming at Wittenberg University.
All right, moving on to Division 5. We didn't have any local teams, but the number 1 seed is still left there. Lutheran East, they beat Richmond Heights to get here. I know a lot of people love that. One of them had to get knocked out for the Final Four.
Only one could make it.
And this one, actually, there's a lot of parity with the RPI because you have Lutheran East at number 1. They're playing Mintford at number 2. And then in the bottom, we have Columbus Academy, who's the only undefeated team left in the state at 4. They're playing Summit Country Day, who is overall the number 6.
I don't know if the state finals is potentially could match up between Lutheran East and Columbus Academy. Those are the 2 teams that are left that are highly ranked. Columbus Academy, as you said, is undefeated. They have had a great season.
Oh, I'm sure that will be a big crowd.
Oh, yeah, huge. And Division 6, Northwest Regional is sponsored by Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Let's find your dream home. See Dalton Brenner for all your real estate needs. Deal with Dalt. All right, Tuesday, March 4th, up at Bowling Green State University, we had the privilege of calling the LCC versus Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry's 24-0 on the season at this point. Their RPI is ranked number 1. LCC shocks the world. Again, not shocked here, but LCC wins 43-35. LCC was led by Jordan Pretty's 25 points. LCC outscored Patrick Henry 16-4 in the fourth quarter. Tabes, I'll let you take this over, and I'll piggyback what you got to say.
Well, it was, again, one of those games where LCC won that because it was a 4-quarter game. If you played 1 quarter, LCC wouldn't win that game. And they followed the game plan to a T. They wore Patrick Henry down because Patrick Henry had the 3-headed monster, and those 3 are the only ones that showed an ability to score with their role players averaging very little. And the game plan was to wear them down, and that's exactly what they did. They put so much pressure on Patrick Henry that in the fourth quarter, the decision-making was not there. The shots were short, and that was evident from the free throw line. And I just really think that Coach Powell had a great game plan in to wear these guys down because, again, Patrick Henry's a very good basketball team. You don't get undefeated by accident. But I think running that college floor, and, again, if you look at the schedules, Patrick Henry plays a lot of Putnam County teams, which is not a bad thing. But I just don't think they faced anything with the athleticism that LCC possesses.
Well, the 2 Krieger boys and the Heber kid are the 3-headed monster,
son, yeah.
The coach's son, and they're going to miss him tremendously. But LCC left 2 guys essentially wide open the whole game, and those other 2 guys that they left wide open as defenders, they just were able to double. I mean, the Krieger boys scored 20. They each scored 10 points the first half for a total of 20. And then the Heber kid scores 11 the second half, while the Kriegers only score 2 each. And for me, this is like a page out of Matt Tabler because I never did this. I never in my scouting report, we're not going to guard him. Yeah. And as Coach Powell, being a kind of disciple of you, took that game plan and says, we're going to let so-and-so and so-and-so shoot the ball whenever they're open because they're not scorers. I looked at this going, okay, Patrick Henry, a number 1 team. They got to have 5 guys on the floor that have to be a threat. No, only 60% of the guys on the floor have to be a threat. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked at how Coach Powell's game plan worked, only because the number 1 team in the state, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. But so, kudos to Coach Powell because the scouting report was played out to a T. Jordan Pretty was unbelievable in that fourth quarter. Big shot after big shot, going 0 for 4 in the first half from the free throw line, hitting huge free throws down the stretch. Big 3-pointer, just made plays when the T-Birds need it.
And some other factors. Patrick Henry only played 6 guys.
Right.
And so they also knew that they could wear him out that way. And speaking of which, where you don't guard a couple of people, that's a roll of the dice because I've been burned on it a few times too. Why aren't you guarding them? And the guy hits a couple threes, but that's the chance you have to take if you know that there are 3 guys that are really good. And you talk about that. Hebert becomes the all-time leading scorer in Patrick Henry history. He was the boys, but he overtook his aunt in that game. And one of the Krieger boys, it was interesting, he's going to be a linebacker and play at Northwestern next year.
Well, it's funny that you say that because the roll of the dice, I remember Todd Rock from the Zanesville Rosecrans. I wasn't even on his scouting report, and I lit them up for 23.
Is that when you got player of the tournament?
I did. So lucky me. In the second game, we have Maumee Valley Country Day taking on Colonel Crawford. Colonel Crawford gets a big win, 48-41.
Can I talk about this game real quick?
You go ahead.
Country Day cracked me up because they had a starter at 7 foot, and then you think that they just roll some JV guys out, and there's this 5'1" kid warming up. Freshman 5'1". I'm like, okay. And then he walks out besides this 7-footer and starts. And they played Colonel Crawford. And actually, they pressured Colonel Crawford and made it a game. I mean, it ends up being a 7-point game, but 7-point game, 48-41. But their pressure got him back in, and you're starting to think, well, why didn't they do this whole the game? But Country Day only played 6 guys.
6 guys, and that one, the 6th man off the bench was a senior. So everybody else will be coming back from Maumee Valley Country Day as they played 2 freshmen, like 3 sophomores. So they should be back if they continue to get better. So in the regional finals, which is the matchup, LCC takes on Colonel Crawford. Colonel Crawford gets a big win against the Thunderbirds, 44-37. Congratulations to Jordan Purdy as he scored over 1,000 points. Not 1,000 points in game, but for his career, he had 11 points. Right on the dot. Free throws. He also had 6 rebounds. LCC was playing without Jeffrey Williams. Again, we talked about the pressure that Maumee Valley Country Day did. That's something that was tremendously needed, and Jeff just brings something different. And for the Thunderbirds have to make that adjustments within 24 hours. That's a hard. I don't know if skill or whatever, but you play. Jeffrey was playing so well, and the T-Birds were playing so well with him, and to have that happen as Coach Powell, I mean, I feel for him, and obviously you coach and you want to coach, but these are the things that you have to deal with kids, and kids are going to make choices, and unfortunately, that's what happens.
And unfortunately, then to compound that, Jordan Purdy picks up his 3rd foul 30 seconds into the second quarter, and now, his 3rd foul.
In the second quarter.
Yeah, in the second quarter. And now you looked out on the floor and you're like, where's the scoring going to come? Because even at one point they had to bring Azad out of the game, and there's guys that could score on the floor, but there was no one to create to get people open to get those points. And they were even forced at one point, Michael Klopman's playing, who didn't get much varsity minutes, but they were doing an offensive defensive switch. He did a fantastic job.
He did a great job. And
along with his brother Matthew.
You talk about just having to kind of like, okay, next man up mentality. And that's what you have to have. And for LCC to keep this into a game. And again, we talk about those fouls. Like typically when you get to the regionals, the officials let you play. I didn't agree with on 2 of the 3. The one foul,
the third one was
walled up.
Who made more contact, offense or defense?
Right. And it happened right in front of the official. Again, it all goes back to the angles, and I give the officials a lot of the credit. But here we are. It's regional finals. You don't make that call, especially, in a situation like that. I thought the defense had great position, especially all the contact that they let go, and then you're going to call that. I just disagree with it.
I loved Coach Powell's game plan here because you saw what happened. Well, you weren't there. You had left when was it Hayden or Holden, their player. When LCC played them straight up man to man, he burned dudes. He makes great decisions with the ball. He rarely forced a shot and was always making the right pass. So LCC's game plan was get the ball out of his hands as soon as possible. And they were doing a lot of rotating.
Run and jump.
Yeah, there was a lot of rotating. Even in the half court, people were like, why are we guarding him? Well, there's a game plan. There's been film that's watched, and you don't want their best decision maker with the ball 90% of the game. So LCC did a really good job being a man down to get the ball out of his hands. But then at the end of the game, it's up 3, and they're attacking with 20 seconds to go. And I'm like, what is he doing? Well, the coach didn't say anything. Coach Sheldon didn't say anything for Colonel Crawford, and I know why, because he makes a sweet alley-oop pass and an and one. That was a pretty nice play there. That's a gutsy call. I know that you always like to be aggressive. I'm more of the circle the wagons, let us foul, use a little more clock, but that's a gutsy call. But when you have a point guard like that, I'm sure he's pretty comfortable, Coach Sheldon, with him going.
So that sets up our Final Four matchup. We have Kirtland taking on Monroe Central. They will be playing at Otterbein on Friday, March 14th. And then we have Colonel Crawford staying home, coming back to Bowling Green to take on the Marion Local Flyers. So that'll be a great Final Four set up there. best of luck to Coach Goettemoeller, because that'll be awesome.
And so we'll set up Marion Local's run here in the Southwest Regional in D6. This is sponsored by Frickers of Lima, where now for the winter season, stop by and get select appetizers half price after 9 p.m. Perfect for after ball games, practice, or to end a long work day. The first game we had was Marion Local. They were taking on Miami Valley Christian Academy. We already said whoever won that district at Walpock's going to a state Final Four, and that's one prediction we got right. That is one prediction we got right. And Marion Local just trounces Miami Valley Christian Academy. They came in with a 20-5 record, and the Flyers beat them 64-29. And then the other game, it was kind of an upset. Anna hits a shot at the buzzer to beat Tri-Village, a number 8 RPI. They win that 47-46, setting up the regional final.
So that regional final matchup is Marion Local versus Anna, where we have Marion Local ranked 6th versus Anna's 49th. But Marion Local gets, to me, an easy win, 58-43. That was played at the Nutter Center down at Dayton. Marion Local led 29-22 at the half, and then 41-37 after 3. And then just the strength and that willpower that the Flyers play. They go 11-12 from the free throw line in the fourth quarter. This is their 6th all-time trip to the Final Four. This is the first since 2018 where they won the state title. Marion Local was led by Austin Niekamp, 17 points, Braden Messers, 13, Ryan Homan had 12 points, 8 of 8 down, 8 of 8 from the free throw line in the fourth quarter. That's ice in the veins right there.
These Marion Local kids that play basketball and football, like they've been going at it since the end of June. But they only know one way. I'm sure this is not like taxing on them. They're just used to it. But they are almost, if they get one more win, they've extended basketball as long as it goes. And every year in football, they extend it as long as it goes. That's just amazing. The Flyers, I really think they're on a roll. I know that they play Colonel Crawford. I just think that when you talk about Niekamp, I think that because LCC was sending a double at Colonel Crawford in the post, and I don't think Marion Local will have to do that, and their guards can pretty much control the kid, the Hayden kid or Holton kid.
Holden.
I really look to see Marion Local playing in a state championship game. I hope I'm not giving them the curse, because I also had Lyman Senior, Shawnee, and LCC in the state Final Four, but I really see Marion Local coming out and going to a state championship game.
Well, I'd love to see that happen too. So let's talk about our Division 7 Northwest region, sponsored by Heritage Floors. When you need high-quality hardwood flooring services in Northwest Ohio, look no further than Heritage Floors. Our local floor, family-owned company has been installing beautiful hardwood floors in homes, schools, and businesses since 1987. Whether you have a small residential project or a large commercial one, you can count on us to produce an exceptional result at an honest and fair price. For a free estimate, please contact us today at 419-523-5556 or see us on Facebook. All right, at the regionals, so we'll start at the regional semifinals, which was at Elida High School. This was on Tuesday, March 4th. Delphus St. John's takes on Fort Jennings, and Delphus St. John's gets a big win, 69-41. Cam Elwer came out hitting his first 4 shots and finished the first quarter with 13 points. The Blue Jays grew their 24-point lead at half and never looked back by holding Fort Jennings to 5 of 27 from the floor. That's just the defense that they played. Fort Jennings ended the game shooting 17 of 57 from the floor. St. John's was led by Cam Elwer's 27 points, 11 rebounds, and 4 assists. Jackson Weekert had 11 points, Andrew Elwer had 10, and Easton Elwer with 10 points. Fort Jennings was led by their leading scorer, Jaron Swick. He had 10 for the game. In the other game, Arlington took on Edgerton. The Big Red Devils get a big win, 38-33. Jace Vermillion had 17 points, which sets up the matchup between Delphus St. John's and Arlington in the regional finals at Bowling Green.
Well, if you look at the regional semifinal game, it was a game where it was really ugly for Arlington, and Delphus St. John's looked really good. Like Arlington, I felt like should have beat Edgerton by 15 or 20, and they only win that game by 5 points. So I thought our prediction of Delphus St. John's getting to that state Final Four and possibly playing Russia in the semifinals or finals was pretty great. I really did. And they moved the location after playing at the Elida Fieldhouse, and it was played on Saturday afternoon on March 8th. And Delphus St. John's got beat. That's all I can say. They got beat 51-46. It's tough when you know both coaches and the emotions of the roller coaster on both sides. Like Coach Verm is higher than a kite, and you got the lowest of the low. But I thought Coach Elwer said all the right things in the press conference. It's very frustrating. A lot of emotions come out. Sometimes they don't come out the right way, but Coach Elwer handled it perfect. This is the second trip for the Red Devils, led by Coach Verm, led them back there in 2012. Calvin Willow, like we talked about, just an amazing game, 22 points, 11 of 14 from the floor. Jace Vermillion had 10 points. Cam leads St. John's with 21. Andrew has 13. But looking at this game, the biggest turning point was the quick shot at the end of the third quarter for St. John's, where they could have taken the last shot up 5. And then there was
up 4, 34-30.
Yeah, and then and actually they had a 34-24 lead. Right. And so to sustain that little run Arlington's making, it gets to 34-30, you have the ball, you want to take that last shot. They had an open shot. I'm not going to necessarily disagree that it wasn't
an goes
open
in, it's
shot.
A great
yeah,
shot.
But also you want to probably take and hindsight's 50-50, but you want to take that last shot because then Arlington gets that run out, gets 2, and then gets the steal, which was really uncharacteristic of St. John's, always heady players, but they're trying to get the ball in quick to give a heave up at the buzzer, and Arlington steals it. And I think all the momentum to the Red Devils at that
all
point.
The momentum. And then they end up by scoring, I think, the first 2 or 4 points in that fourth quarter. So they go in like a 14-0 swing. Again, as you said, momentum. Mm-hmm. And the regionals like that, you get momentum. And I thought early on when Coach Vermillion calls that timeout when they went down 10, St. John's had it. But again, great timeout by Vermillion. And then everything just kind of switched. They come out, they score 6 straight points. You talk about the missed 3, layup, and then turnover layup. It's hard to get that momentum back. And because we're talking about high school kids, and not only that, the crowd was electrifying from both sides of the floor.
Yeah, and you talk about that, Frank, because sometimes you feel helpless as a coach. You know the momentum swinging. You've called timeouts. You've tried different things, and you just can't get that momentum back. But that's the beautiful thing about basketball. That's why we love it so much, because on any given night, a team can win. And I'll be the first to admit I gave Arlington 0 chance to win this game. But the game plan, they called it the no-3 zone defense, even though they drained a lot of 3 St. John's for the game. But you got to give a lot of credit to Coach Verm. They were ready and prepared. Looking at their common losses, they both had 2 losses to the 2 same teams in Crestview and Spencerville.
Yep.
And then the third loss for Arlington was Liberty Benton. So Coach Verm's 3 losses weren't bad losses when you're talking about
and they were
very good teams.
Back-to-back weekends too.
Yeah.
So we lost 3 in a row, but that sets up a state semifinal matchup. Arlington's going to be taking on Russia. That'll be played on Friday, March 14th at Bowling Green again. And then the other one, my good friend Babe Kwasniak from Cornerstone Christian Academy will be taking on South Webster on March 14th as well. That'll be played at Ohio Dominican University.
Well, you look again at Arlington. Can Coach Verm shock Ohio for the second straight weekend? I mean, he beats the number 2 seed. They're the number 5, so it's like they're not that big of an underdog. But you look at the Blanchard Valley Conference, you look at Coach Verm's schedule, you're not sure that they've been tested like a Delphus St. John's, and they get the upset, and now he has a chance to shock Ohio again by beating Russia.
Well, he's got 5 days of practice, so we're getting ready for him. So let's take a look at our over-under. I finished with 16-14 over the season, where Coach Tabes, he was 12 of 18.
But this is the story of my life right here. I mean, we're doing covers on, and all I need is 1/2 more covers. So I just got to win one more game. The over-under on the Shawnee game was 6.5, and Shawnee wins by 6.
And
half
they,
point.
And they missed several free throws down the stretch too, where, Wenton Woods obviously upset over Lima Senior, Gates Hawkins. They beat Elida, and then you have Patrick Henry, LCC, covered. LCC covered by 4.5. Then you had Marion Local versus Miami Valley Christian Academy. They covered 24.5 point spread there. And then Delphos St. John's covers their 19.5 spread there. So almost.
And then the Arlington game too. Arlington was favored by 11.5, and they only win that game by 5. But you won the overall. If you look at it, you were 16-14. I was 12-18 because the other one was 160.5. I did not imagine the score of Lima Senior Winton Woods being at 117, but again, that game was played at a high level. Pretty good defenses on both sides. I wasn't even close. So there's always next year, and as I do with gambling and betting, there's always the next game. I'm not going to fret about it. I went 2 for 3 on parlays yesterday. If I lost that one and quit betting, then I would have never won the last one. So
I was down to 49 cents in my DraftKings account. I'm back up to $25. I'm on a heater is what they call that.
Yes, and I hope you're not down to 49 cents in 2 weeks in Vegas, because I'm not bringing any extra money.
Once again, we would like to thank our good friends, our sponsors at the Varsity Locker Room Podcast, Frickers of Lima, Stallion Insurance, American Heating and Air Conditioning, Jody Cartagena at CCR Realtors, Henderson Concrete, Dalton Brenner at Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Thanks again for listening to the Varsity Podcast. See you next year.